everyone, I'm Rosie from Whispers of the Soul. I'd like to tell you a little bit about myself today, and this is my first ever video, so I'm very, very excited. So I do apologise if things go wrong or I mix my words up, but it's my first video, so I'm just going to try. You know, if we don't try in life, we don't get, so I'm just going to try my best. So a little bit about me. So I'm based in Worthing, West Sussex. It's in the south coast of England. If you've been there, pop it in the comments. I'll be happy to see who's been to Worthing. It's a really good place to live, and I'm so glad it's my hometown. So we've got the best of both worlds here. We've got the seaside and we've got the South Downs. So as an empath, I've always been drawn to be with nature or be by the water. So for me, it's the best place to live. So I'm a Reiki practitioner, amongst other things. And I qualified in 2014 as a Reiki practitioner. However, my healing always was there. As a child, and I'm sure a lot of you can resonate with this, as children, we're not aware of what we're doing in certain circumstances. We just see that as normal until, unfortunately, which has happened, society shuts us down and we get told we're crazy for doing these types of things, when really these are our natural born gifts. But anyway, as a child, I always found myself, when someone was hurt or someone was upset, I just wanted to help them. I just wanted to make everything better for them. I often would want to put my hands on where they were hurting, whether they had a headache or they hurt their arm. I would always want to put my hands there. And as a child, it was just so intuitive. But now as I get older and I realise what I was actually trying to do, and I was always drawn to animals because I'm an animal healer as well. Always was able to communicate with animals, especially horses. I've always had a very strong connection with horses. Anyway, so this has been going on for a very long time. Amongst other things, as I said, I'll do other videos in the future about other things that I've experienced. But today I just want to discuss about the Reiki healing. So the reason I became fully aware of what I was doing was actually thanks to a cat. And he was my cat. His name was Trubshaw, and he was a long-haired British Blue, and he was absolutely gorgeous. I got him when I was 14 years old for my birthday. And he was such a, as all of our animals are, they have such crazy characters. And Trubshaw, for some reason, had an obsession with flowers. That was his obsession. Other cats have obsessions with catching mice and stuff like that. But Trubshaw was a bit different. He liked flowers. Maybe he was a florist in a previous life. Who knows? Anyway, I spent some time in the Dominican Republic. I actually spent 6 years there. And I returned from the Dominican when I was 28 years old. And unfortunately, my cat Trubshaw started to go downhill, and I was a bit annoyed by this, to be fair, because I'd spent all this time away from him, and I really, really didn't want him to go anywhere. I came home and I wanted to spend time with him. So there was this intention there, which had started of, no, you're not going to leave me. Anyway, so he wasn't feeling himself, and as pet owners, we all know, don't we, when our animals are not themselves. They communicate through body language with, when they're not eating as well, and we have all those signs. And I was in the veterinary industry for a number of years, so I always would say to pet owners, yes, we always know when our pets are not at their best. They always tell us in whatever way they can. So he wasn't feeling very well. So, of course, I took him to the vets. And at the time, actually, I was working as for work experience as a vet nurse. So I knew the vets where I took Trubshaw very, very well. And I knew the veterinary surgeon and I knew the head nurse. Anyway, so he had a blood test done. Now, he was about 14 at the time. So he wasn't a young cat, he was a senior. And the blood test came back and showed that he had something going on with his liver, and it was possibly cancer. So of course I was like, oh no, this is my baby. And as I said previously, the intention was I don't want my cat to go anywhere. I'd spent a long time away from him. This was my time to be with him. So anyway, the vet had said to me, he is strong enough, Rosie, to have a biopsy done. So we'll put him under general anaesthetic. And we'll open him up and then just have a little look what was going in there and do a biopsy of the liver. And I was like, okay. So Trubshaw went in for the day. And then when I came to collect him that afternoon, he had a load of stitches down the middle of him. And of course, animals need to be kept in for a certain amount of days before they go back to the vets and have a post-op check and get the go-ahead by the vet to say, yes, he can go outside. So Trubshaw loved going outside. He loved his garden. So for me, I was told by the vet that I knew very well that he needs to be kept in for at least 10 days and we'll do the post-op check in 10 days. And I was already thinking, oh no, poor Trubshaw, he won't like that at all. He likes going outside. Anyway, of course, I listened to the vet. So we took him home. I was living at my parents' at the time, actually, so it was my dad and I. We took Trubshaw home. And of course, he was very, very weary that first evening because obviously he's still got the general anaesthetic still in the bloodstream. It can take about 48 hours for it actually to leave the body. So he chilled out that night. Now in the morning, and this is when it started, the Reiki really, I was sitting in the lounge with him and I looked at him and he was laying there and he was quite content, but with his stitches and his belly open. Not open, but without, they shaved it because he was a long-haired British Blue, so you could really see where it was. And this voice started talking to me. And this voice has been speaking to me actually since I was 7 years old. That was the first time I heard this lady's voice. What I know now is it was one of my spirit guides, but at the time I was unsure. I was 7 years old and it was an adult female in my head. But she was very calming, always been calming, has helped me a lot, but that's another story. However, she said to me, Rosie, you've got to take him outside and walk him on the grass. Because he could walk okay, it's just that the vet didn't want him going outside, just in case he jumps or anything like that, because obviously he's had his tummy open. Anyway, this voice kept persisting, and I don't know if a lot of you feel this as well, but there was this energy of, this is what I have to do, even though I've been told not to. Story of my life. So, in the end, I listened to the voice, probably 10 minutes of just like, I've got to take him outside, I've got to take him outside. And it sounds strange, I know, because it always sounds strange when I tell it to people. However, I'm going to tell you exactly what happened, because this is how it happened. And maybe some people who are listening to this can relate to this and have had a similar experience. So I take him outside into the back garden, and the voice said to me, the female voice, he will follow you, like a dog would normally, follow you around. And she said, I want you to go onto the grass, Rosie, and I was barefoot. And of course, he was in his paws, so he didn't have any shoes on or anything. Very important for grounding work, actually, making sure you're walking barefoot on the grass. And she told me to walk around in a circle. And she said to me I had to do this 3 times, and I can't remember which way it was at first, but it was clockwise, anti-clockwise, and then I had to do diagonals. Now I did this probably for about 10 minutes, and I was absolutely shocked. He was following me. Of course, my dad thought this was absolutely nuts. One, I'd gone against what the vet had said, but he was being supervised, he was with me. It was a beautiful day, I remember that. So the sun was out, so it wasn't getting wet at all. And he was very content. Anyway, I did this 3 times a day when this lady said to me to do it, and I followed her instructions. So within 3 days, his scar had completely healed, and my dad was a bit shocked by this. So he actually phoned the vets and said, can we bring him back early rather than wait the full 10 days for the post-op check? So we brought him back to the vets, and the vet examined him and said, okay, yeah, the inflammation's gone down rapidly. And he's got the go ahead now. He can go back outside. Bearing in mind he had to be in for 10 days. But this is where it really started for me. So when we got home, Dad and I, and Trubshaw, that evening, I remember sitting out on the rockery in our garden. And you know when you go into like a daydream state, where you're kind of not there, like a trance-like state, I suppose, isn't it? When you're daydreaming, it feels really relaxing, but something actually is happening there. And my attention was not with the cat or sitting on the rockery. I was actually just staring out at the tree in our garden. And my attention was suddenly drawn to my father coming down the garden path, and he said to me, "Rosie, what are you doing to Trubshaw?" Now that's when I came back into my awareness, and what I said was, "I'm healing Trubshaw." Now, those words weren't mine, in the sense, well, they were mine, but I never thought that. Like I said, I was daydreaming. When I said that to him, I could feel all of this heat coming out of my left hand. And I looked down and my hand was actually on Trubshaw's heart chakra. So just about here on his chest. And I then became aware of my hand becoming very, very hot, which I'd never felt before. Maybe I did as a child, but I wouldn't have been aware of it. But as an adult, I was really aware of like, okay, that's strange. So all this heat was coming out of my left hand. And he was in like a trance-like state. He wasn't asleep. He was in the same state that I would say when we're daydreaming. So his eyes were open, but very relaxed. They were open, they weren't closed. And he just laid there. And I just kept my hand there. And then my dad walked off down the path. Now, normally the cat would have got up and like, oh, what's going on? There's someone coming or approaching. But no, he just stayed in this position. Eventually, I don't know, 10 minutes, 15 minutes later, I just stood up and I walked back down the path. And he just laid there. And I was in the kitchen watching him. Both Dad and I were watching him. And he then decided, okay, I'm going to get up now. And he did look a bit like, oh, you know, like if you've been for a massage or a meditation and you're a bit like, oh, you know. So he was like that. And then I noticed he came down the path and he started eating. And he was eating quite a lot. Well, now I know, obviously, with the energy, a lot of my clients actually do experience this, where they feel extremely hungry because the Reiki energy, when it's working through your energy system and the body, it circulates everything and you do become very hungry and your tummy rumbles. And as an animal healer, this was the first time I'd ever done it, that's what Trubshaw was doing. He was really hungry. Now, he kept coming and asking, which my mum found hilarious. He kept asking for crystals, because I had a lot of crystals at the time when I was doing this, when I started this. And he was asking for crystal healing, which again, I'd never done before, but I was always drawn to my crystals. So I ended up doing this every single day, just putting my hands, and obviously then I started to look into Reiki and what was happening. My dad at first called it faith healing. He didn't say Reiki or anything like that. He just said, you're doing faith healing. So that's how much I didn't know. I didn't know anything about it. I just knew that my hands got really hot, the cat liked it, and it was working. My intention was there as well. It's like, no, you're not leaving me. I'm not having you leave me in 2 months' time. So there was this real intention on my part, in my awareness, in my consciousness, of you're not going anywhere. No. We've got a journey to still do in this life. So then, basically, he would ask for it every single day. I was an English language teacher at the time, so when it actually came to Trubshaw's annual health check, it was in the January, and this started basically in the April time, the year before. And I actually had a student over that I was teaching, so I couldn't attend the annual health check, but my mum and dad took him. And the vet was really shocked because he said, well, I wasn't expecting him to live past 2 months. And he said, and the liver was riddled with cancer. However, there was a really big lump of it. That shrunk in size, but all the other ones have gone. And his weight's gone up to how it was last year. And he was really shocked. And he did say, you know, from a scientific perspective, the liver is a self-healing organ. However, I wouldn't really think in a cat of this age. I mean, I gave him 2 months to live because when he opened him up, he saw how much cancer was all over his liver. So he said, whatever Rosie's doing, just continue to do it. So I did. And he lived for another 2.5 years. And I will continue the story in my next video to what happened 2.5 years later, because that was amazing when it was his time to pass over. But I'll leave that for another story. I hope you enjoyed it, and pop any messages to me if you would like to come for a Reiki treatment. So I do it on people and animals, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you very much. Bye.